Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Soul Call with Kelly B. My name's Kelly Butchert, and I'm your host here. And as many of you that tune in and listen to the episodes here, you'll know that I'm very frequently joined by some incredible guests who share their own personal inspiring stories. And today I am joined by the beautiful Gill Bauer. Jill, thank you for joining me for today's episode. I would love if you could to please introduce yourself and let everybody know a little bit about what you do and where you're based.
My name is Gill Bauer and I'm based in Brentwood in Essex, and sort of wear many hats. So I'm a fitness instructor, a scuba diving instructor, a kinesiologist. I teach Qigong. I'm into a little bit into everything. I'm curious about everything. And I think that's why I've diversified, because I'm always asking questions. When I move this way, why does it hurt? So then I need to know about exercise and movement. If I eat this, why does it make me feel sick? So then I'm into chemistry and biology and nutrition, when I'm around this person, why does this person make me feel safe and comfortable? But when I'm around this person, why does that person make me feel agitated and angry? So then it's like emotions and energy, and so that took into the energy pathway, and then the human condition, and then each month, why do I get this pain in my groin that takes me so I'm always curious, and I think that's why I wear many hats, because there's a part of me that's curious about everything, and so I want the big picture of everything. So it has taken me down lots of different pathways to get to the point where I am now.
Amazing. What an incredible introduction. And I love how you have not niched yourself in any way. You are this incredible being, and I want to give a shout out, first of all, to our mutual friend, Emily Teague from Soul Inspiration. Emily was a previous guest on my episodes here on the Soul Call. So if you haven't tuned into Emily's episode, please make sure that you do so. Emily introduced us, didn't she, Jill? And I've been on your Facebook group for quite some time now. Can you just remind us the name? Because I don't want to I don't want to give the wrong name. Can you just remind us of the name of your Facebook group, first of all?
Okay, so I've got one main page, and then I've got a subgroup that I'm doing at the moment. So my main page is health, fitness, and kinesiology, and I sort of deal with all topics about everything to do with the human and the spirit and the soul. And then I've got a subgroup which is specifically for women's health, and that's called Sail Through Peri to Post Menopause. So just go on Facebook, search, and I keep all of my videos on there just for ease, and lots and lots and lots and lots of information.
And there really is so much information in that group. And I have loved the fact that Emily has introduced me to your world, Jill, and for your generous sharings inside that group. There's a wealth of information there. And I know many women in my own life, whether they're clients, friends, and family, who would really, really benefit. So I have, invited friends, and I've shared your information. And what I'll do is I'll drop the links down below this episode so that people can find you really easily as well. So despite me saying at the outset there, you've not niched yourself, you do have niches, you do have areas of specialism, I want to say. And you speak with so much wisdom into all of these areas. And I know that the women that I'm thinking of right now, particularly friends of a certain age, would really, really benefit from tuning into your group and really learning so much more about the energy involved with menopause, the mind, the body, and the soul. So thank you for that offering, because it's so, so beautiful and so needed. Today, we're going to talk about lots of things, I'm sure, Jill, but one of them I'm so, so, so looking forward to learning so much more myself. Having recently been, well, I would say the last 3 years, become more and more and more curious. And I talk about wonderment. I look at everything through the eyes of a child. I worked in education for a long time. And so I love how you talk about being curious about lots and lots of things. And in the last 2 to 3 years, I have become more and more curious about meridian therapies. And for the last 20 years, I'd heard of the work of Donna Eden. I'd heard of meridians, but I hadn't really worked with them. I'd worked with the chakra system, but I hadn't really delved into the work of meridians. And we've heard that you're a Qigong master. I know that you do lots of different energy healing therapies yourself. But what you mentioned to me in a previous conversation was about the curious flows. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I'm so interested in all of this myself. So, having recently been introduced to meridians myself and working now with meridian therapies myself, I'm always interested to hear more about other people's views, what they've discovered, through their own curiosity. So, we can start in a number of places, but why don't we start with, I'm aware that some people will maybe never have experienced meridian therapies themselves. So I would love if you would you like to take us into what your understanding of meridians are, so that the viewers and listeners can have an introduction if they're not yet aware themselves of what meridians are?
So I love your introduction saying a Qigong master. Maybe not in this life, but I think I might be in this life. Because when I started to work with the meridian system, it wasn't learning, it was like remembering. It just seemed really natural and organic, and it just felt so familiar. I felt really at home with the meridian system, and my curiosity to like expand. So you talk about Donna Eden. I met Donna Eden and she was amazing. Her energy was amazing. And at the start of my journey, I was sensing and curious about all these different experiences. But I didn't have structure. Energy is very all over the place, can't it? So I wanted something that had structure, that I could work with in an organized way. And kinesiology was that. So that was my intro into the meridian system, because in kinesiology, we work with one of the energy systems, which are the meridian systems. We also work with chakras, we work with different electrics, we work with different lots of energy systems, but majority of our work is through the meridian systems. So then I started to learn the meridian system through kinesiology, but it just was so familiar. So then I've always been teaching yoga and different forms of activity and exercise. And one of my courses was a Qigong course. And I thought, this is it. This is where I belong. This is me. I felt just really familiar with it. So we can think of the meridian system as I refer to it as the London Underground map. And each of the 12 meridians have their own colour, they have their own sort of pathway with acupunctures on top, which is almost like the stations you get off and on. And imagine at the moment, I think the trains are on strike or the tubes are on strike. If your whole meridian systems are blocked, you're not getting anywhere, and then it's chaos. Can you imagine you've got to get from here to there, but your meridian systems are blocked, congested, energy isn't flowing. So then it's about, well, how can I get to here? Why is this line not working? That's where the curiosity comes in. How can I get from here to here? How's the best way to balance that? What has brought the block or the congestion in the first place? And is it just a one-off, or do I have to work deeper with that? So the meridian system is the closest thing to the body, and then the chakra system works above that. So they sort of talk to each other, and the energy sort of travels up and down. So if you're working with your chakra system and you keep getting a block in your chakra system, it could be that it's the meridian system that you need to go to get the fix, or to look deeper into any of the issues. And so then you go into the acupuncture and learn, I've done some traditional Chinese medicine, you look into the herb. It's thousands of years of learning. And so I feel as if possibly I've learned it before and I'm just remembering it now.
Yeah, I so agree, because, as I said, it's only been the last couple of years that I have really focused in on energy meridian therapy, specifically through silent counselling, which is what I trained in, and now offer that as, you know, I'm a trainer for that modality myself as well. And having worked with the chakra system for many years prior to that, not having worked with the meridians before, it just felt so natural, like it was like a remembering. So, you know, I love the fact that you're owning, yeah, I am a master of this, because you do know this. This is stuff that we know. And of course, you know, we think of this as ancient wisdom that we are reactivating and remembering. I love the analogy that you've used with the London Underground, because I talk about the meridians as being they're energetic highways where chi, or life force energy, is traveling through. And as you say, you know, if there's a block, the traffic can't get through. This is exactly the analogy that I use with clients and trainees as well. So what are the issues then that people can experience if they have blocks in their meridians, or blocks for, you know, their energy traveling through, and how can that manifest in people's lives?
Okay, so it takes us then into the 5 elements, and two of the aspects that tend to come up with the meridian system is when there's an excess of something. So if I'm got a client and I don't know this client and I don't know anything about their system or their energy or their lives, I do like a meridian balance, because then I get like a template or a picture of where they are now. And I often say to clients when we're doing the balance, it's a bit like the M25 analogy. You know, energy wants to flow around the 5 elements, and the 5 elements represents all of the meridian system. And there could be a block here, there could be a block here, or, you know, some stagnation there. And when there's a block, you can get too much energy. We call that excess. And then there might be heat, or there might be pain, or there might be anger, or there might be just too, like your engine's revving in traffic. You feel as if you're doing a lot, but you're not getting anywhere. And so then we have to unblock that, and then the energy can flow. And then we find out where the priority is, because it's never just one thing, is it? It wouldn't be perfect in life if you work with things and you go, oh, you know, it's just one thing. No, there's sometimes big block here that will link to a little block here, and there'll be under energy here. So we've got this balance of excess energy versus under energy. So excess energy could lead to something like anxiety, and under energy might lead to fatigue, lethargy, lack of motivation. And so then when we unblock it, then it begins to flow, you know, just like the tube line. It goes along the line, along that plane, but we work with the whole system, and we want it to sort of circulate freely.
Well, we are electromagnetic beings, aren't we? When we think about, we are a circuit, and we want that circuit of energy to be flowing freely without obstruction. And what I found, I don't know if you found this too, Jill, but through our work, we hold the keys and the power within us. And in this modern age, many of us have looked to the external. We've looked to, you know, doctors, and I've talked about this so many times. There's a place for everything, but we've looked to, yeah, let's use the analogy of going to a doctor, you know, with a problem, and we get a medication, because let's face it, that's often what doctors, you know, they'll diagnose a condition, they'll give us a medication, and really we're not getting to the root cause of what the issue is within our internal circuitry. We're just putting a plaster, and we're dumbing down the body's attempt to show us what's going on, because I truly believe that the body is never working against us. It's always communicating something to us in order to heal ourselves. And when we can self-sabotage, that's really what I'm talking about here. We can self-sabotage our own healing by not getting to the root cause, and we can put a plaster over something. And of course, when you stop taking those medications, and really what I'm thinking about here is, we've touched on perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and a lot of anxiety that can come up specifically for women around that sort of time of their life. And I know lots of women who are prescribed perhaps HRT and anti-anxiety medications, sometimes medications to help them sleep, sometimes they're experiencing physical pain. And so we start to take medications, but none of these medications, disclaimer here, I would suggest are really getting to the root cause of what an issue is for someone. So we can often self-sabotage our own healing. I wonder if you can speak into what your personal feelings are about that.
I think the medical profession tends to deal with the effects. You know, you're having anxiety, you're having this pain, and then they'll give you medication, but they're not going upstream and looking at the cause. And possibly because they don't have the time, you know, you can't, they have maybe 5-10 minutes of a GP appointment. How can you summarize somebody's life? And they do ask pertinent questions to try and delve. And as I said, it's not always one thing. Sometimes it can be multifaceted things that are all linked to this. And this is where my curiosity comes in. You know, oh, that person's got that, they've got that, and they've got that. I've seen that so many times. That pattern comes up because of this. And, you know, they don't have the time to do maybe the investigatory diagnosis is not the word, but have a look at everything that's going on, the chemical, the emotions, nutrition, lifestyle, movement, you know, family, you know, stress, what, you know, the whole, I think when you deal with clients and when you deal with energy, you have to look at the whole big picture because it's not just one thing. And and sometimes within a kinesiology session, you know, the client needs to be maybe on antidepressants because they are so overwhelmed. Their energies are so blocked. The client hasn't got the energy to do the healing. And so sometimes they might need antidepressants or other medication just to get them back into a level where their energy can start flowing, and then we can start doing the work. So likewise, I think anything is a form of healing if it's given at the right person at the right time for the right reason. But we can work hand in hand with the medical profession, but this is our own toolbox that everybody has availability to. You know, if everybody can do this, it's not just a unique practice to me or you. Maybe we've taken the time and the curiosity to remember it, but energy is available to everybody. It's like, I think this is a future, the way the future is going to go.
Yeah, and I have to say, unfortunately, the days seem to have gone where you had a family doctor. But prior to his retirement, my family doctor had started to really explore these ancient wisdoms, and he became an acupuncturist himself and started to provide that in his sessions with patients rather, and was seeing miraculous results. And so that really piqued my interest about, I would say, maybe 30 years ago before he retired. And so what's so wonderful is that we're starting to see this re-emergence, this reawakening in the Western world, all these ancient wisdoms. So I think the big message here for people is to stay curious and not just to accept that there's something wrong with you and you need a medication to fix yourself. There are other areas to explore, and having a holistic view and a holistic picture of what is going on within the body system, that we have a mental, emotional, physical and spiritual body. And I feel that there are more and more people starting to explore the spiritual side of their well-being as well, that we cannot forget that there is so much more to us than what we physically see and feel necessarily. So let's come to speak about the curious flows, Gill, because this is something that really piqued my interest that I had never heard of. And of course, what I am so interested in is the unseen, you know, what we can't specifically see, but we know to be true. And, you know, this is where science, you know, all of this is science. And I think what people traditionally feel is science is, well, prove it, show the evidence, you know. And I've heard people say, you know, like what I teach in silent counselling is pseudoscience. Well, this is all scientific, and there are thousands of years of proof of all of this. This isn't new, and it's not pseudoscience. And I know that you will have seen so much evidence in your own client work and in your own life, and how people can step in to heal themselves, and that we just show them the way, that we have stepped in to become more and more curious. And we are, like Emily describes, we're the handrail to show people how to take the steps themselves to heal themselves. So with your curiosity, this has led you into exploring through many, many years of your own practice, not just meridians and the chakra systems, but these curious flows. So please, please, please share, if you will, what you have discovered about all of this.
So the meridian system is the 12 meridians, which are really quite structured. You know, you'll find them in all the textbooks. They're acupunctures, they don't move, you know, they're permanently there, they're easy to study, they're easy to work with, they have their own themes around them, and they're like the day-to-day stuff. So if you go out of equilibrium or out of balance, you come back and balance your meridian system. You go for an acupuncture session, or you come for a kinesiology session, or you do Qigong. It's all about bringing those meridian systems back into balance. But in the meantime, what's happening, so we're trying to establish equilibrium, whatever that equilibrium line is. Sometimes we have to tap into the reservoirs. There isn't enough energy to do the work. So then we might have to tap in to the extraordinary meridians, which are called these reservoirs. And so that we are dipping into the extraordinary meridians, because if we're balancing the meridian system, we're sometimes having to draw down that extra energy. If we've got too much excess, we can, like a bank account, we can deposit it back, you know, rather than energy can't be destroyed, it can only be transformed or transmuted. So we can then, you know, bank it into back up again. So we're drawing down, we're pulling up, pulling down into the 12 meridian systems. But the 8 extraordinary meridians are also known as the curious flows, the strange flows, the radiant circuit, the psychic. So they have so many names because they do different things. But the thing with the 8 extraordinary meridians is they're not structured. They hyperlink. They use the wisdom of the body. They go where they're needed. And so it's really harder to actually get some kind of structure for them. And there's loads of different ways that we can work with them. So once you start to understand, and I've been working with the 8 extraordinary meridians, I've known they're there, but I haven't been able to find a course or a book, because the writings about them are very, what's the word? They're not tangible. You know, you can't feel it, touch it. It's a little bit, isn't esoteric. It's just a little bit wispical. There's not a structure there. But they're amazing and they're very simple, and they're very unique in the way they work. And obviously there's 8 of them. And the one that I'm really focusing on at the moment is called the Chong Mao, because it's also known as the penetrating flow, and it works with the womb, the uterus, and all women health issues. And so, you know, it's part of my sail through peri to menopause and working with women's health. You know, we might during the menopause have to dip in and dip down and pull down that extra energy. But when your meridian system's balanced and you tap into the 8 extraordinary radiant circuits, strange flows, curious flows, then you start to feel joy and bliss. I mean, like, you know, that's how we should be living our life. Experiencing, like you say, wonderment, joy, bliss. But if we're stressed and we're unbalanced and we're blocked and we're stagnated, you know, we don't feel joy, we don't experience bliss. So it's about us doing the work to return to that state of being, which is just, you know, experiencing joys. And joy's fleeting, bliss is fleeting. We can't be living in a state of joy, would be really annoying. But I think it's allowing us to, even when awful things happen, you can still go outside and see a shard of light coming through the tree and seeing that leaf and go, wow, that's beautiful. And when you do that, you smile, your whole energy system just lights up and like a sparkle. That's how I sort of see the 8 extraordinary meridians. And I'll tell you this story. When I was a young girl, my first job is I used to work in a supermarket, and there used to be this man that used to come in, and he was just what I would call joyful. Every time he come in, he was smiling. He made me feel really comfortable. I always felt really happy when he walked away. I was like, wow, you know, I love that guy. I love that client. He always comes in, and that customer, he always has a kind word. He's always happy, whether it's raining outside, it's cold. He was always joyous. And I remember saying to one of the other girls that worked beside me on the till, and I said, oh, that man is so nice. She said, do you know what he does for a living? I went, no. She said, he's a mortuary. He works. So even that guy who was working with death and working with people and their, you know, family members at the worst time in their lives, when they're the most broken, the most heartfelt, he still was able to come away from work, go to the supermarket, get his lunch for the day, and be joyous. You know, even as a kid, I thought, there is something there that, you know, how can that guy do that awful job but still find time for joy? And I think that's what summarized what the extraordinary meridians are. When they're balanced, it doesn't mean that all our life is smooth. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect. It doesn't mean that we don't have problems. It just means that we've got the strength to work with them, to stay balanced, but also find a moment to find joy in the small things in life.
Yeah.
And I think we've forgotten how to do that.
Yeah. So true. I love, love, love what you've shared there. It's these inner resources, rather than looking to the external world, it's activating and remembering that we have these inner resources within us to heal ourselves, that we truly all hold the answers within. And so I wonder if you can talk us through how, you know, maybe you have an example that you could share of how you've worked with somebody and how, because I'm just aware that there will be people that are tuning in, they'll be watching and listening that have an awareness of meridian therapies and how we work generally. But there will be some people that are curious to learn about, well, what would a session look like? You know, what would that mean for me if I'm struggling with, say, anxiety, or I'm struggling with menopausal symptoms? What would a session look like? So I know that you've touched on acupuncture, and I talk about nodal points or emotional location points on the meridians. And in silent counselling, we use acupressure and touch and breath. And so we release the negative discharge of the emotion that's attached to a situation without reliving any trauma. So I know that you have a multiple of disciplines that you use, but say somebody was coming for a kinesiology session with yourself. Can you talk us through roughly what somebody would expect to experience?
So it depends what the client's coming for. Some people turn up and they know exactly what they want to deal with. They know what the problem is, and it could be anything. And then we might sort of use that theme to find out where the stress is. So like you say, we'll do an overall small balance just to get the underlying meridian system sort of up to cue, so it's got enough energy to do the work. And then we might sort of ask whatever the topic is, and where is the stress around that. So it's just every single topic might come up. That's the problem, you know. And you never worry with kinesiology, because there's always, I don't have to know about everything, because the energy will send us where we need to go.
Yeah.
So say, for example, okay, so I had a young client come to me and she gets anxiety. And it's because like she's overthinking, she's very yang, she doesn't allow herself to slow down, and so she's hearing all this mental chatter, but she can't sort of pinpoint it. So she's getting really stressed. So she's coming for anxiety. But then when we do the work, you know, we have like a big menu, and we just say to the body, right, okay, this is your stress pattern, this is what you're coming for. What do we need to do today? And it'll come up with like a little menu. And we might need a little bit of this and need a little bit of that. And let's add some of that in there. And so you might have to balance the meridian system. You might have to look at, so anxiety, B12 deficient, for example, might come up. We might have to look at what's going on in their life, what stresses are going in their life. Oh yeah, they're starting a new job. You know, that could be triggering it. They've just split up with a boyfriend. That might be connected to it. And it just takes you on the journey, and we can't do everything in one session. So sometimes a client comes in and we just get them balanced for the day, because that's all they want. They've had something go on. It's passed. It's lingered. The energy pattern's lingered, or the stress pattern, or the fuel that fuels whatever it is that they're experiencing is sort of lingering. And then we might just need to dissipate it or smooth the energy out. And then people can go back out and go back on their lives. But it might be like child trauma, or a miscarriage, or a death, loss, bereavement. And then that takes a little bit longer because the person has to work in a slow way. So kinesiology really just works with the person's personality. If they're shy and they have to work in a very yin way, then very methodical, and they're not very open, then it takes a little while to build up rapport, to get that client to open up. But then you might get a client who's direct, right? I've come in, this is a problem, I want to get it sorted, and then that's how the session will work. So it does it really does work with the client's own energy, and they, whether they're conscious or unconscious, they dictate how we work. And so it's almost like I'm like the telephone exchange. I just go into their body, go, this is the problem. This is all the tools that I have in my toolbox. What do we need to do today to help that client to solve that? And then it can have like a domino effect. You start to take out some of the big problems, and then they can then go away and deal with the rest themselves. So the thing with kinesiology is that I've never had one client, one session that is the same, because everybody's unique. Everyone's energy is unique. And I've literally experienced every single topic that you could possibly think of. And so if I come from a medical doctor's, I'd probably be the most sophisticated medical doctor, because you have to know a little bit about everything. But only enough to be able to have a conversation about it and explain to the client what's going on. And quite a lot of the time is when, so say for example, fear or anxiety comes up. Sometimes getting that person, so I know you do silent, because if you deal with trauma, you don't want to keep bringing it back up to the surface. But in some situations, just acknowledging what it is that frightens you will take away the energy behind it. And so the client might not have to go into the experience, but they might have to think of a sentence, or think of a word, or think of emotion, and then while we hold points to dissipate that. So it sounds very similar to what you're doing, but literally
fascinating, really fascinating. I'm wondering, as I'm listening to you, Gill, how much, because it's sounding to me like the curious flows are more subtle, but equally, if not more powerful. So how much is it that you are tapping into the divine intelligence of the body, and how much are you using your intuition, or is it a blend of both, would you say?
Definitely a blend of the both. But the extraordinary meridians, I suppose where they differ is that, so we go back to Chiang Mai, is like the first vessel. It's the first channel. Then from there, and Chiang Mai is called the ocean of blood, or the sea of blood, or the sea of 12. And anything that's got ocean in it just says soul to me. That just says soul. So it's soul work. I think the extraordinaries work on that extra level so that you can be your extraordinary self. And the Chiang Mai is about, it chooses your gender, your ethnicity, your disposition, and how you're going to live your life. It's about purpose, what you're here to do, and it helps you, once everything's balanced, and once you work with Chong Ma, then you remember why you're here. You remember what your purpose is. You remember that you're this amazing, not just a body with a soul, but a soul in a body. And your light and your energy and all of these things are who you are. And then you start to become more curious. But you wouldn't just know it. So with the extraordinary meridians, you have to work really, they're so potent, so powerful. You have to do little bits of work. But all the time, they're obviously feeding the 12 main meridians. But so if we go back to women going through the menopause, I think they lose their sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get to that point where we think, well, even if I didn't want to have any more children, I'm not able to create birth, you know. And I think that's where the Chong Mai comes in, and the uterus, and not enough blood flow. So a lot of menopause problems is that we're not getting enough blood into the uterus. Or we got too much blood into the uterus and it's not getting out.
Or like me, you don't have one because you've had an hysterectomy.
Exactly. So then, but you still need blood into the system to keep the tissues healthy and the cells healthy. And I think through menopause, I think we just lose our sparkle. We lose that. And if you lose your curiosity to life, you give up. You're just biding your time, really, in that 9 to 5 humdrum sort of experience of life. Whereas I think when we go through postmenopause, we could be in postmenopausal for 30 years. What, we're going to just give up? No, that's when we start being the wise woman. That's when we start getting more intuitive. That's when we can start with got the time to be curious. We've got the time to explore. And so I think the extraordinary meridians, you'll notice them when any time you feel bliss or joy. And it's usually within nature, or, you know, you look at a baby and, you know, it's that unconditional love that you feel. And why would we ever want to lose that? And it's I think remembering that is a natural state of being, and the way that we live life is not natural. It's just stress driven. We're all doing too much. We're all under a lot of pressure, especially the last 3 years. There's been so much pressure. And it's I think the curiousness about the flows is to ask questions, to sense what you resonate with. So people will be watching this and they'll just resonate and they'll think, oh my God, that's because they're just talking about the extraordinary vessels will spark them up.
I think what's so interesting is I believe in divine timing of everything, Jill, and the divine orchestration of everything. And the fact that this has really come online for you in such a big way, this remembrance of the extraordinary meridians, and you teaching this just in the words that you're speaking right now in this podcast and with your clients. It's time, isn't it? This is the perfect time for women, especially, to bring back online their creatress energy. And you mentioned yang energy earlier, and the yang, you know, the patriarchal systems and structures that have been on this planet for a long time. And again, I'm not bashing all of that, but so much of it has been toxic and has not been for service to all. And the matriarchy, I'm not saying it's one over the other, but the yin energy that's now coming back online to rebalance that and to lead, actually. The yin energy is the one, in my opinion, that leads, and the yang energy comes in to support, so that there's that perfect symbiosis, that perfect harmony and balance of both. And would you agree that the yin energy is what's really been missing on this planet for such a long time? The divine feminine who's here to create and to really to be of service of love and harmony and balance and all those beautiful divine feminine flowing energies, if you like. What would be your opinion about all of that?
Absolutely. But I think within the yin, we always need a bit of yang, because then the yin energy is like caring, loving, compassionate, empathetic, but they don't put the action in. You've got to have the balance.
Yes.
And going back to Chong Mai, is that it's that mother matrix energy, and it's about unconditional love, and it's about intimacy and connection and being equal to your partner and being strong within yourself, you know, coming in and finding your divinity. And it's about not just surviving, but going above that, you know, being you're tapping into your purposes in your destiny. What do you come down as a soul? What is your job? What is your journey? Why are we here right now? And then that's tapping into that energy, and possibly, you know, that yang energy is switching the Chong Mai off so that we are not tapping into that amazing energy, so that we become smaller,
Yes.
not as powerful. We're not stepping into our power.
Yes.
And a lot of women will, their Chong Mai isn't like vibrant and radiant, then they might have self-esteem issues, and that could lead to, you know, external factors, trying to change the way they look, or buying things, or getting into the wrong relationship, because connection and sex is one of the ways that can balance the Chong Mai, but only if it comes from a place of love and a place of
Sacred place. Yeah.
proper connection. And
Yeah.
so then if you're using sex to make you feel better about yourself, then you're just draining and imbalancing your Chong Mai. So mother wounds come up with this, childhood trauma, birth trauma comes up with Chong Mai. So then all of those things will stop us in our tracks and make us disempowered, and we lose a sense of self. So the Chong Mai, even just working with the Chong Mai, little bits, helps us to step back into that, regain our power, our divinity, our sense of self, our purpose. And then we might have to do the work. I'm not saying it's plain sailing. I'm not saying it's easy. But it gives us the courage, the strength, that little spark of yang within the yin, to put the action where it's needed.
Yeah. So the what I describe as the divine feminine leading, but the divine masculine coming into support with the aligned action. So it's leading with the heart, but then the aligned action, like you say, we wouldn't get around to doing the action, and that's what we're here to do. But it's got to be heart aligned action. It's got to be coming from that loving place, isn't it? I just love this.
The Chong Mai has 4 branches, but one of the branches goes from the umbilicus to the back to the perineum up into the heart. You know, so it's that uterus heart connection, but also up into the eyes and the face and the voice, the throat, so that you can speak the truth.
Yeah.
You can see the truth. You know, you can hear the truth. You know, it's everything, and it's into the legs that you can take the steps to move forward. So it's just an amazing, out of the 8, it's the place to start, because it's the original. And so there you need to go and reinforce that, so that chances are, if you do that, then all of the other meridians will get supported, including the 8, including the 12. But again, it's potent, it's powerful, because tap into that, you go, right, well, the reason that you're not doing this, cause and effect, is because of this, and you've been ignoring it, and you haven't been dealing with it, and you've been stuffing it down, you're suppressing it. Now's the time, you've got the strength, let's go and deal with this. Let's clear this, clear this up, whatever that might be.
As I'm listening to you further, Jill, I'm even coming back to the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd's work, which is based on the hexagrams of the I Ching. And I'm not an official Gene Keys practitioner, but I do offerings of Gene Keys insights in some of my services. And I look at what are called, he calls them the prime gifts, and I call them your soul gifts. So you've got your life's work, your life's purpose, your radiance, and your evolution. So that inner light that you're here to shine, like you spoke about that bloke who used to just make you feel he was in his joy. He was in joy. And when he was coming in as you were a cashier at your work, he's like spreading his joy, spreading his light, radiating his light. And our evolution is what our soul is here to learn, so that we can evolve and grow as a soul. And we're all connected through our fractal line, so we're raising the frequency of humanity as we step in to do this inner evolution, this inner work. And also our life's work and our life's purpose. It's these, and I think many more people are exploring who they are as a soul and what their purpose is. And it's sounding like the work that you are helping people to explore. You're opening that doorway for people to really delve in much more deeply, maybe to contemplate much more deeply than they ever have, of what they are really here to be, who they're here to be, because the yang energy is all about doing. And my path, as I said earlier, 20 years working in education, and I felt I'd served my purpose there, and now it was time to step more fully into a deeper purpose, into something that was more deeply fulfilling. And what I've discovered is that although I provide services, and of course there's aligned action coming in, I'm spending much more conscious time now being who I am as a soul. And I think that's what I'm hearing you get into the root of with people, again, in your client work. How important would you say that that is now for humanity to explore? Because this unfulfillment, when women especially get to a certain age and they're feeling like, well, I've got the job, I've had my family, what's next? Like you say, we've got 30 odd years still. So I think it's the perfect time. I think it's divine orchestration again. It's perfectly timed for us to take that time to be present with ourselves and to deeply explore who we really are as a soul, because we've got a bit of lived experience now. We are beginning to have the opportunity to bring online let's call it the crone archetype, alongside the inner child, the maiden, the mother, the crone, all coming together into this remembrance of the inner wisdom. I wonder if you could speak into that just before we start to wrap up the conversation.
Okay. I think it's all about timing. The person has to be right.
Yeah.
When I was a child, I just thought energy was like breathing. I didn't even know what the energy thought was. I just sensed it and just thought everybody could do it, and
Yeah.
everybody can. And then it wasn't till later on I realized, oh, hang on, I feel things differently, and I better not tell anyone because they're going to think I'm strange. But they were probably just strange flows. And so I think people come into, being their purpose, living their purpose at different times, at different stages. And there can be catalysts in their life, like that are going to waken them up. Like we're all being woken up at the moment. We're all being elevated and evolving, whether we want to or not. And I think like the things like the daily grinds and the daily stresses and aches and pains in the body can distract you away from your real purpose and who you are, because you've got this pain and it might be in your hip because you've got tight hip flexor and you just need to stretch a bit, but then that takes you're so focused there, you forget about everything else. You forget that you're the body's just this heavy coat that we wear sometimes, and then you unzip that coat and take that off for a moment. You remember how light and amazing and just unconditional love that you feel. And so it's learning to remember that we are both. We're a body and we're a soul, and they work together. And sometimes we work with the body, sometimes we work with the mind, sometimes we work with the soul, sometimes we have to bring that all together. And you just work with the client whatever stage they are in their awakened state, and
their level of consciousness, their level of awareness, because I always say that nobody's ahead of anybody else. We're where we're meant to be, and whatever we've contracted to do in this lifetime is perfect for us. So we're always where we're meant to be. And I truly believe too that everybody that steps in to do consciously this work on themselves is actually working for everybody, on behalf of everybody, because we're all connected. So when we step in more consciously to remember and to reactivate, I always think of that as not just a mission of self-love, but it's a mission of service to the whole. If you're coming from the right place and the right intention, of course, which I can't imagine anybody that didn't step into it with you or I wouldn't be, because we are magnetizing that energy towards us, that we're doing work that's beyond what the mind can comprehend. Would you agree?
yeah. And as I said, like when a client comes to kinesiology, I work with their energy, I work with their personality. So, you know, I could say, no, let's just do the extraordinary meridians. And that would maybe spark a person into, but that's not right for them. They have to choose. It's their choice. It's their willpower.
Right.
It's when it's their journey. It's their purpose. It's when it's right for them. I just facilitate and not determine what's what. I always ask the client's energy. What are you ready for today?
Yeah.
You know, and
Oh.
you know, some days they'll come in and it will just be mundane. So, you know, they might need some nutrition, or they might need, you know, some lifestyle changes. Other times they'll just take their soul onto that next level, and they want to work with opening up their intuition, or they're having dreams or remembering stuff and past life stuff. And so then we'll go there. So there isn't set fixed. It's like you say, it's very subtle. And we just work with people and clients, whatever stage they're in, at whatever level they're in. And the wisdom of the person's body determines how we work. And that gives me a lot of comfort and rest assured. I'm not here to do anything. You know, I don't sort of think, oh my God, what clients are going to be coming through my door today. I never think that, because I just think, I'm just going to, I don't, you know, I'll just do whatever the energy wants from that person today. And that's the only way we can work.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's so respectful of a person's divine will. And this is the beauty of how we both work. It's so, don't know if ethical is the right word to use here, but it's coming from a place of purity. It's coming from a place of holding the right space for someone to meet them exactly where they're at. Yeah, seeing the divine orchestration of it all. I have so loved this conversation, Gill. I would love if you could, before we go, if you could just, you know, tell people where they can find you again, and if they would like to step into work with you, what they would do.
Okay. So the easiest way is, I will give you my email and contact details, but my Facebook pages and groups are the easiest way. So my main group is Health, Fitness and Kinesiology. And then you can go and have a look at some of the things I'm doing. And then if it's women's health, then the group is called Sail Through Peri to Postmenopause. Just go on there, do a search of any topics, ask any questions, and then I can give you a little link how people can contact me. But thank you very much, Kelly.
Oh, it's just been wonderful to have this conversation with you, Gill. And, you know, just listening to you, I'm feeling so inspired. You know, it's reminding me of my purpose as well, and why I stepped into doing what I do. And although we're calling it different things, you know, I'm not big on labels. It's the same work. We're just showing up in a slightly different way. We're here to serve, you know, our people in the most beautiful, pure ways that we can. And, you know, the other thing that I'm thinking here is that, you know, we have children who are growing up, and, you know, I worked for 20 odd years in education, and I never yet heard a child say, I would like to be a kinesiologist when I'm older, or I would like to be a Qigong master, or I would like to be, you know, working with the curious flows. And so wouldn't it be an amazing world if we had children who, you know, are inspired by parents, by mothers or fathers who are listening to this conversation, and we're opening up and reactivating, you know, little portals of ancient wisdom, and reminding us of our deeper purpose in life, you know, to serve the whole, to serve humanity, and, you know, to start thinking outside the box, you know, or just taking the box away completely, just focusing on who we are as these incredible souls on these incredible missions, and never ever to lose the curiosity that you described when you were a child, thinking, am I just strange? You know, like, I am just assuming that everybody experiences the world like this. And of course, we do when we're first born, and we have it programmed out of us. So I really, really hope, and I know, in fact, that people listening and tuning into this episode will be thinking more deeply about what they experienced as a child, and maybe what they've shut down in their own lives, and what they really need to reactivate and reopen again in order to allow the curiosity to flow and to look at the world through eyes of wonderment again and experience all that they've came here to be.
I mean, I'm finding that the kids absolutely love Qigong. They love, and I'm hopeful that it's becoming more out there. We have things called Kinesiology Brain Gym that really helps with children develop. We've got the primitive reflexes for the babies that are integrating they've had a trauma through birth. You know, I work with children that have learning disabilities like ADHD. They love Qigong. I recently got asked to go and do an hour's Qigong at the Scouts Club, and they were just, their energy was abundant, but they just get it. They just absolutely get it, because they're closer to soul to spirit and they remember. And so there's hope that, you know, all of these things that you do, the things that I do, I think it's just getting people to know about it and just talking about it.
Yeah, and that's what I love this podcast for. I've met so many amazing, incredible people like yourself, Gill. So I just want to thank you and honour you for stepping in and making that choice to say, right, okay, show me how I can serve, and just taking yourself on that journey and showing the way for others. So keep being that trailblazer that you are. So, so grateful for this conversation and for you coming on in this conversation today. Thank you so, so much, Gill.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. See you next time.